gonna go ahead and first of all, hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Florence. I'm an intern with PR. This event is co-hosted by PR and Afghan LGBTQ Organization. So I'm going to introduce Portage Policy Research Institute. PR is an independent nonprofit research think tank based in Washington State. PR's mission is to produce fact-based analysis that informs constructive interventions and solutions. Founded in 2015, PR emerged in response to the historical tyranny and injustices in Afghanistan. After the fall of the Afghan government to the Taliban in August 2021, PR rebranded and registered as a US-based think tank, continuing its mission to provide fact-based analysis and solutions to the most pressing challenges of our time, focusing on underserved communities and minority populations. Recognizing the need for an organization championing LGBTQI+ people in Afghanistan, a coalition of passionate LGBTQI+ activists came together to form the first ever non-governmental organization devoted to the cause, Afghan LGBT Organization, or ALO, which is the other host of this event. Their primary mission is to support Afghan LGBTQ+ individuals with a keen focus on those seeking refuge. Their dream is of an Afghanistan where every individual's rights are upheld and where freedom and justice are universal realities. So I want to also let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded. If you would prefer to stay anonymized in some way, we can do that in post recording. Just reach out to us. I will put my email in the chat. So if you want to have your name blotted out or something like that in the recording, please let us know. But in that case, I will pass the mic over to our moderator, Artemis. Artemis is an activist, radio producer, and founder of Afghan LGBT Organization.
Thank you so much, Florence. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this very important discussion on the plight of LGBTIQ Afghans in Afghanistan. My name is Artemis Akbari, the Executive Director of ALO. ALO is the organization for LGBTIQ Afghans, which was established after the fall of Afghanistan, and its headquarters is based in the Czech Republic. As you know, after the fall of Afghanistan, the situation of LGBTIQ people and women and girls in Afghanistan deteriorated dramatically, and many reports published about the unjust detention, torture, forced disappearance, and even execution of LGBTIQ people by various international organizations. Also, at the beginning of this year, we published a report in February 2024. We published a report about the sexual violence against LGBTIQ people committed by the Taliban. And in this report, we talk about how the Taliban uses sexual violence as a weapon to oppress LGBTIQ community. Also, Human Rights Watch and Outrage International published a report in 2022 that they interviewed 63 LGBTIQ Afghans. And in that report, LGBTIQ people shared their experiences under the Taliban's rule. So today, we want to assess the current situation of LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan under the Taliban's rule. And for that, we have 5 distinguished panelists that they will share their insights on the current situation of LGBTIQ people after the fall of Afghanistan. And now I want to introduce our panelists. First, we have Walid Mohammadi. Walid is a dedicated human rights activist who has collaborated with numerous international organizations to advocate for the rights of marginalized groups, particularly LGBTIQ+ community in Afghanistan. In addition to human rights work, Walid is a talented digital artist and has actively participated in projects that explore the intersection of technology, art, and social justice, contributing to innovative and impactful initiatives. Next, we have Samyar Nazari. Samyar is a dedicated LGBTQ+ and women's rights activist from Afghanistan As a trans man, Samyar is deeply committed to promoting awareness and advocating for the rights of individuals within the community. Samyar's ultimate goal is to establish a safe and inclusive environment where all individuals, particularly women and members of LGBTIQ community, can thrive without fear of discrimination or persecution. And next we have Mohra Barakzai. Mohra is a prominent Afghan human rights defender with a commitment to LGBTIQ plus and women's rights. Mohra has undertaken significant advocacy efforts on the global stage. A notable example of Mohra dedication is a 150-day sit-in and 11 days hunger strike in Malmö, Sweden, to advocate for LGBTQ rights. Mohra is one of the first transgender women from Afghanistan to publicly stand against gender apartheid in Afghanistan. And next we have Aylar Rezai. Aylar is an LGBTQ rights and women's rights activist based in Germany. As a member of ALO organization, she actively contributes to their efforts in promoting LGBTQ rights. Additionally, Aylar works as a research consultant delving into issues related to LGBTIQ plus equality. Her commitment to supporting marginalized communities extends to her work with LSVD organization and Rainbow World Fund organization. As a case manager, Aylar plays a crucial role in assisting Afghan LGBTQ women in their safe evacuation to secure locations. And finally, we have Frishta Abbasi. Frishta is a researcher in the Asia division at Human Rights Watch, focusing on research and documentation of ongoing abuses in Afghanistan. For the past 10 years, she has documented human rights abuses in Afghanistan with different organizations, including Human Rights Watch and All Survivors Project. She was previously a legal advisor for International Development Law Organization, where she trained and developed employees' legal skills within the Afghan justice sector. She holds an LLM in international law and strategic studies from University of Aberdeen and was a Chevening Scholar in 2019 and 2020. Frishta has also published on human rights issues in various Afghan media. Welcome to all of the panelists, and we are looking forward to hear from each of you and gaining valuable perspectives on today's topic. So now I will ask the first question from Walid. Walid, how would you describe the current situation of LGBTIQ individuals in Afghanistan under the Taliban rule?
As we have seen the latest developments and reports on Afghanistan, the situation is getting really bad day by day. So far, there's been like 3 major reports which has been published on the situation of Afghan LGBTQI people inside Afghanistan. And we see the number of crimes being committed against them are increasing. And the Taliban are becoming more strict towards this issue and trying to like actively hunt down them and prosecute them in any way they can. So it's not good. And the only way for Afghan LGBTQ people is to escape or go in hiding, which a lot of young individuals cannot afford to do. So they are left in a state where they do not know what to do, yet existing in their own household or neighborhood is becoming increasingly difficult day by day. And I'm in contact with some of the individuals we interviewed for the previous reports that they cannot leave their accommodation or a student accommodation, so they just have to stay in a room, which is quite haunting for them right now. So as a whole country, like they don't have anything to do.
Thank you so much, Walijan, for your answer. And my next question is for Frishta. Frishta, in 2022, as you know, Human Rights Watch and Outright International published a joint report on the situation of LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan. How can you tell us about the current general situation of LGBTIQ plus people inside the country, and can you talk about the recent trends in Afghanistan, the recent development? As you know, Taliban recently published a new law that officially criminalized same-sex relationship. Over to you, Frishta.
Thank you so much, Artemis. And I mean, at the beginning, I would like to say that it's extremely proud and honor for me to be sharing this panel with all these fantastic speakers, the lineup of speakers. So congratulations on you and the Persish for arranging this. As you mentioned that we've documented the abuse that has been happening against the LGBTQI plus community in Afghanistan. One thing that I want to say is that Afghanistan is a dangerous place, especially for the marginalized community and vulnerable people. And what is happening right now, it's not a black and white picture. It's not as if before the Taliban take over, the situation was perfect for LGBTQI plus community. I mean, you brought up this new law, the new promotion of virtue and prevention of vice, which explicitly actually prohibits being gay or lesbian, which is quite crazy for me. When I was going through the law, I mean, I was shocked and I was trying to get into the head of the person who actually drafted this. How can you prohibit being gay or lesbian? How are you going to implement that? How are you going to monitor that, right? But this is not the first time that it has happened in the history of Afghanistan. And previously, the 2019 Penal Code, before the Taliban takeover, Ashraf Ghani passed a penal code that also criminalized same-sex relations. So this has been, and the Taliban have just continued what the previous government have been doing. So it is not a black and white picture. I remember that I was working on a report about the conflict-related sexual violence against men and boys in Afghanistan while I was there, and I traveled to some of the provinces in the country. It was a very, very eye-opening research for me, because as a woman from Afghanistan, as a woman whose work had been focused pretty much on women's rights in Afghanistan, I always thought that women in Afghanistan are the most vulnerable community. But when I did that research, that's when I found out, no, actually, there is another community that even do not have any voice. Because one of the things that happened in Afghanistan before the takeover, and now, I mean, this is the exact code of one of the Taliban's official, is that the LGBTQI plus community doesn't exist in Afghanistan. And I think that's quite alarming. And that's what it was. This community did not have any voice. People were not speaking about it. There's a lot of stigma attached to even using the LGBTQI plus community, even using the word. So, and the abuse that was happening was quite shocking for me. So when the Taliban say that this community doesn't exist, then you can expect what could happen after that, right? Well, I mean, among the things that we have documented, the Taliban members have committed abuse, arbitrary detention, torture, I mean, sexual violence, physical violence, as well as extrajudiciary killings of the members of the LGBTQI plus community because of their sexual orientation. And at the same time, they have dismantled all the legal protections. I mean, I'm not saying as if before the Taliban takeover, there was a huge amount of legal protections. No, it wasn't. But right now, there's nothing available. And I cannot even imagine how people are surviving and how, and I cannot imagine how they're still surviving and living in Afghanistan, because at least what I can say right now is that it's an extremely dangerous country for the members of this community to stay in.
Thank you so much, first, Jan. As you said, LGBTIQ people have never been safe in Afghanistan, even before the fall of Afghanistan. And as you said, the punishment of same-sex relationship was long imprisonment in the previous regime. And now the situation deteriorated and became worse. And I remember last year at the beginning, I think it was January 2023, that Zabihullah Mujahid, the spokesperson of Taliban, had an interview with the Radio Free Europe. And in that interview, he claimed that we don't have homosexuals in Afghanistan. And he said that we have just few homosexuals that brought by Western countries. But on the other hand, we saw that a few weeks ago, they officially criminalized same-sex relationship in Afghanistan, which is really a big paradox in their policy, in their behavior, or in their public speech. So thank you so much, Jan.
Can I just add something? Because, I mean, yeah, because we went through the abuses by the Taliban and by the authorities, and I mean, the lack of legal protections, and even previously, even before the Taliban takeover, this was criminalized, right? But one of the things I want to mention here was that also the abuse that the community have been enduring from their families. So, I mean, as I said, there's a stigma attached to it. So they're also being abused by their families. I mean, they're being rejected, their identity is being rejected. In some cases, they are forced to marriage, and they have been, expelled from schools. So this is something that we need to also consider when we are speaking about it.
Yes, it's absolutely important. I always say this that LGBTIQ people experience different layers of discrimination and violence from their family, from their friends, the society, the government, non-state actors, and also the state. So thank you so much, Rishta John, for mentioning this. So my next question is for Samyar, and I will say the question in English, but then I will translate it to Farsi for Samyar. As a trans man who lived in Afghanistan before being evacuated in 2022, how was life for trans people under the Taliban rule? Could you share some of your experiences with us? I'm going to translate this question for Samyar. Samyar will answer it in Farsi, and then I will translate his answer into English for all of you. سامیار جان، من از تو سوال پرسان کردم و سوال من هسته که به عنوان یک مرد ترنس که سال 2022 از افغانستان تخلیه شدی و تو تقریبا بیشتر از 6 ماه در داخل افغانستان بودی وقتی که افغانستان سقوط کرد. اگر اشتباه نکرده باشم تو به عنوان یک ترنس شرایط افراد ترنس توی افغانستان چگونه توصیف میکنی و اگر میتونی تجربیات خودت را با ما به اشتراک بذار سامیار جان.
اول اینکه سلام به همه، بعد اینکه من شروع میکنم جواب دادن. زندگی به عنوان یک مرد ترنس در افغانستان تحت حاکمیت طالبان چیزی جز وحشت و فقدان نبود. از لحظه‌ای که طالبان دوباره به قدرت رسیدن، هر امیدی که ممکن بود برای آینده بهتری داشته باشیم نابود شد. ترس سایه دائمی در زندگی ما بود. به عنوان فردی که در جامعه‌ای که حتی پیش از طالبان هم به شدت محافظه‌کار بود بزرگ شدم. می‌دانستم که باید هویت خود را پنهان کنم، اما با آمدن طالبان این پنهانکاری تبدیل به یک مبارزه برای بقا شد. لطفاً اینو ترجمه کنید.
اوکی، حتما سامیر جان میتونی کامل پاسخ بدی و من نوت برداری میکنم و بعد هم برجام.
حتما. طالبان نه تنها مخالف جامعه LGBTQ هستند، بلکه وجود ما را به عنوان گناهکاران و تهدیدی علیه نظم اسلامی خود می‌بیند. اگر کسی به هویت من پی می‌برد، احتمالاً یا توسط طالبان دستگیر می‌شدم و یا توسط جامعه به آنان تحویل داده می‌شدم. در بهترین حالت شاید از خانه و خانواده رانده می‌شدم و در بدترین حالت جانم را از دست می‌دادم. برای من و بسیار از دیگر افراد LGBTQ افغانستان به مکانی تبدیل شد که نه تنها هیچ جایی برای ما نداشت، بلکه ما را به عنوان تهدیدی میدید که باید از بین برده شود. یکی از تجربیات تلخ من زمانی بود که در فرودگاهی در مزار شریف که میخواستم از افغانستان خارج بشوم، طالبان نذاشتن که من سوار هواپیما بشوم و منو داخل یک اتاقی بردن و سعی میکردن که میخواستن منو بررسی بکنن آیا من دختر هستم آیا پسر هستم، چون به من یکسر میگفتن که تو دو جنسه‌ای. دیده‌ها و شنیده‌های من از دیگر افراد LGBTQ نیز تفاوتی ندارد. بسیار از آنها مجبور به فرار شدند، اما بسیار هم نتوانستند کشور را ترک کنند. برخی از آنها در سکوت زندگی می‌کنند، در حالی که برخی دیگر با خطرات روزانه دست و پنجه نرم می‌کنند. بسیار از دوستانم ناپدید شدند و من هیچ اطلاعی از سرنوشت آنها ندارم. برخی احتمالاً به دست طالبان دستگیر شدند و ما هیچ وقت خبری از آنها نخواهیم شنید. طالبان نه تنها حقوق انسانی ما را سلب کردند، بلکه وجود ما را به عنوان انسان‌های مستقل انکار کردند. در افغانستان تحت حاکمیت طالبان ما به اجبار به سایه رانده شدیم و هر لحظه امکان داشت آنچه از هویتمان باقی مانده است نیز نابود شود. امروز مسئله اصلی این است چگونه میتونیم به این افراد کمک کنیم. یکی از بزرگترین مشکلات فعلی این است که با وجود تلاش‌های سازمان ملل برای خروج افراد جامعه LGBTQ که جانشان در خطر است، بسیاری از این افراد بعد از انتقال به پاکستان رها شده و به حال خود واگذاشته شده. بسیار از این افراد در پاکستان گیر افتادند و هیچ کس پاسخگوی وضعیت آنان نیست. کیس‌ورکرهای آنها را بلاک کردند یا کاملا نادیده‌شان می‌گیرند. این رفتن از سوی کیس‌ورکرها به شدت نادرست و غیر اخلاقی است. اگر نمیتونن کمکی کنن، بهتر است که دست از تلاش بکشن و کسانی که واقعا توانایی کمک دارن مسئولیت را بر عهده بگیرند. وعده‌های دروغی و امیدهای بایی فقط وضعیت این افراد بدتر می‌کنند و به جای آن باید واقعیت‌ها به آن گفته شود. اخیراً یکی از افراد LGBTQ که 1 سال پیش با کمک سازمان ملل به پاکستان منتقل شده بود، هفته گذشته ایمیلی دریافت کرده است که کیسش لغو شده است. او بارها سعی کرده با کیس‌ورکرهای خود تماس بگیرد، اما نه تنها پاسخی دریافت نکرد، بلکه حتی توسط او بلاک شده است. این فرد در نهایت از شدت ناامیدی اقدام به خودکشی کرده و اکنون در بیمارستان در پاکستان بستری است. از هر سازمانی که به این افراد کمک می‌کنند درخواست می‌کنم وعده‌های دروغی ندهید. اگر نمی‌تونید کمک بکنید، بهتر است سکوت کنید و از چهار دادن بپرهیزید. این جان‌ها شوخی نیست. امید بیجان دادن به افراد تنها می‌تواند منجر به تراژدی‌های بیشتری شود. بهتر است که به جای وعده‌های پوچ و دور از واقعیت برنامه‌های عملی و حمایت‌های واقعی ارائه شود. چون این افراد به تصمیمات و اقدامات ما وابسته است و با باز کردن با امیدهاشون تنها به جنایات بیشتری دست میزنیم. من هر روز پیام‌ها و تماس‌هایی دریافت می‌کنم که به شدت نگران کننده و ناراحت کننده است. وقتی داستانشون رو میشنوم یا با آنها صحبت می‌کنم و از اتفاقهای وحشتناکی که براشون افتاده نشان میدم وضعیت روحی اونا به شدت خراب است. و لطفاً اینو ترجمه کنید.
تشکر سامیار جان و متاسفم برای مشکلات و تجربیاتی که داشتی سامیار عزیز. من حرفایت رو تا جای نوت برداشتم و سعی میکنم تا جایی که میتونم و یادم مانده ترجمه میکنم و بعد دوباره به برمیگردم. تشکر برای پاسخت. So Samir answered the question. I took some notes and I will do my best to translate it into English. I hope I will not miss some parts, but I will do my best. So Samir said that as an Afghan LGBTQ person, the violence we experienced during the Taliban, as an Afghan LGBTQ persons who were in Afghanistan, I experienced violence. And also he said that under the Taliban rule, living as a trans man in Afghanistan was nothing but fear and suffocation. When the Taliban regained power, all hopes for a better future were destroyed. It was a shadow of constant terror, a daily reality of hiding my identity, pretending to be someone else. Under the oppressive and ultra-conservative regime, being openly trans was not an option. It became a fight for survival in secrecy. The Taliban not only opposed the LGBTIQ plus community in public, but also view us as sinners who deserve punishment. If my identity were ever discovered, I could have been arrested or handed over the authorities by family members or community members. At best, I would have been ostracized from home, and at worst, I would have been killed. Also, Samir mentioned that in my last day of presence in Afghanistan, I was in the airport and I wanted to go outside of Afghanistan, but the Taliban detained me because they wanted to check. They detained me in a room and they wanted to check my body because they wanted to make sure that if I'm a boy or a girl. Also, Samir mentioned that the critical question today is how can we help LGBTIQ plus people with international organizations attempting to evacuate people. There is a growing danger for many of them in Pakistan where they are left stranded, vulnerable, and without proper assistance. It's incredibly disheartening to witness the lack of real action from international organizations. And also, he mentioned that the false promises only make things worse. A year ago, the international organization helped to transfer an LGBTQ person to Pakistan, but that person received a rejection, I think, from the German embassy. And but unfortunately, that organization who evacuated him to Pakistan doesn't do anything in order to help that person, and he's living in a very difficult situation. And also, Samir said that when that person reached out to his caseworker, he was blocked by that person. And then he asked the international organizations that do not give false promises to the LGBTIQ people because it makes the situation worse. Also, I also in one part of his speech he mentioned that I receive many calls and messages and about from LGBTIQ plus people in Afghanistan. They share their stories and narratives. They cry and they are so disappointed and they ask for help. And that's it. I think I hope I translated what Samir mentioned, but yes, thank you so much, Samir John, for answering this question. And as you said, unfortunately, sorry if my camera was closed. Let me open it. Yes, as you said, Samir John, many LGBTIQ people left behind inside the country, and just few LGBTIQ people have been evacuated to neighboring countries. But as you said, those countries are not safe for them, unfortunately. And now the evacuation programs has been stopped for a year, unfortunately. For example, Germany promised to evacuate many LGBTIQ Afghans to Germany, but unfortunately, less than 100 people have been evacuated till now. So I think this is the problem of not only the international organization, but also this is a problem and false promises by the member states like Germany that they didn't take responsibilities and they didn't evacuate LGBTIQ Afghans. Thank you so much, Samir. And my next question is for Mohra. Mohra Jan, since the fall of Afghanistan, you have been actively advocating for the recognition of gender apartheid. And you have argued that gender apartheid affects not only women and girls in Afghanistan, but also LGBTIQ individuals. Can you elaborate on this, Mohra Jan?
Well, it's been decades that there is gender apartheid against LGBT community in Afghanistan. But when Tamana took a stand for women, and as they are saying they are human rights activists or women's rights activists, they totally forget the trans women's, lesbian women's, and our LGBT community women's. So they was just fighting for a straight community, and they thought we are not even humans. So why should they fight for our rights? After that, I decided to go on hunger strike, and then I went to hunger strike for 11 days. I was in hunger strike for 11 days, and then I took a stand for LGBT community. It was my hunger strike was about recognizing gender apartheid against LGBT community. So it's not just women. After that, many of human rights activists in Afghanistan, that they was not ready to support me, to get a stand with me, and some of them fortunately came and supported me, and I was totally alone in that 11 days in hunger strike. So as we all know, gender apartheid is like, first of all, I want to say about what gender apartheid is. Gender apartheid is when like a person is in somewhere and the person is not allowed to go to school, not allowed to go somewhere out from the home, not allowed to study, not allowed to work, not allowed to live in the basic rights. When the person doesn't have, that's called gender apartheid. Well, it's the case that there's gender apartheid against LGBTQ people, but the national organizations supported a lot, I think, before LGBTQ community in Afghanistan. There was, but the inside in Afghanistan, where it was organizations, they was taking fund, but they was not doing anything for our community. They was like totally taking the funds, everything from United Nations. It was a lot fund that they get, but they never supported. And even they was ashamed to support it. They was ashamed to take a stand for our community. And they still call themselves that they are human rights activists. Even most of them, they don't know what's LGBT, what we are, like how we are. They have no idea about it. So that's why I took a stand for LGBTQI community, and I took a stand against gender apartheid. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Mohra Jan. You mentioned many important points. As you said, unfortunately, within our community, within the Afghan civil societies, we always have this issue. Unfortunately, when they talk about human rights, they don't talk about LGBTQ rights. But in fact, LGBT rights are human rights. So, and also I saw it many times among Afghan civil societies and the women's rights activists that when they talk about women's rights in Afghanistan, they don't talk about the rights of trans women, intersex women, queer women. So we have this issue. And regarding the definition of gender apartheid, I want to highlight this issue that there are various campaigns for the recognition of gender apartheid under the international law as a crime against humanity, but most of these campaigns propose the definition for gender apartheid, which is not LGBTQ inclusive. The definition that some of them propose, unfortunately, is very exclusive. And even we saw that the UN Special Rapporteur Richard Bennett published a report for the 56th session of Human Rights Council. And in that report, he used a definition for gender apartheid, which was very exclusive, and that definition was really problematic. So that's why it's very important that if we advocate for recognition of gender apartheid, we should advocate for the inclusive definition of gender apartheid, and if we advocate for human rights, we should also advocate for LGBT rights. As Mohrajan mentioned, LGBTQ rights are human rights. Thank you so much, Mohrajan, for your answer. And now my next question is for Aylar Rezai. Aylarjan, you are at on the forefront lines of rescuing LGBTIQ individuals to safer countries, particularly LGBTQ women like lesbian, bisexual women, trans women, and queer women. Can you tell us more about the unique challenges faced by LGBTQ women in Afghanistan, especially in terms of violence and discrimination that they experience? Thank you so much. Over to you, Aylar.
Thank you, Artemis John. First, thank you from Porsish Institute and ALO for organizing this event, and thank you for having me here. So, Artemis John, I want to bring intersectionality to our discussion first. As you mentioned, and Freshna mentioned that, like, it is important to recognize that lesbian, bisexual, trans women, as well as trans men face a higher risk of violence and discrimination compared to cisgender and heterosexual community in Afghanistan. And this violence can be influenced by factors such as ethnicity, religion, language, and geographical location. For example, a trans woman who belongs to the Ismaili minority and lives in a remote village in Qur may experience more violence due to being a part of an ethnic and religious minority and having limited access to welfare facilities. And also, she's facing violence because of her gender identity and sexual orientation. But now, the existence of the Taliban has caused this woman to experience systematic violence. After the arrival of the Taliban, forced marriage, forced childbearing, domestic violence for LGBTQ individuals have increased. And as Freshta mentioned that because of the lack of legal protection, they faced double marginalization. They experience violence and discrimination, not only from the man of the family, but also from the man of their tribe, and then from the society, and then the Taliban member. And if their sexual orientation or gender identity is relieved, they will face honor killing. As you know that under the Taliban regime, homosexuality is criminalized and punishable by death. And LGBTQ women living under fear of being reported to the Taliban because of these reasons. And you know that in the last months, we are seeing the increasing number of lash in public by the Taliban, and the number of these people who was victim are women. So yes, and go on, Artemis John.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done. If I had like.
Oh, okay. So sorry for it. Continue.
So LGBTQ women in Afghanistan are facing forced marriage, and also they are facing systematic poverty because they are being banned from work and not having a mahram like cisgender communities. But like this discrimination for like LGBTQ plus community is like worse and double. I want to bring an example here, Artemis, because I have a case. She is a lesbian woman who became a victim of child marriage. And after years of sexual abuse and giving birth to 3 children, she lost her husband. But when the Taliban came, she was a widow and she faced pressure from male family members and the Taliban to get married again. That means that this violence is repeated and do not have end in a cis-normative patriarchal society. And so I'm facing this violence and discrimination in my daily work because I'm close working with trans individual, lesbian, and bisexual. And and I want to say that the existence of the Taliban and their laws legitimize violence against LGBTQ women within societies and family. So yeah, Artemis John, I'm finished.
So thank you so much, Aylar, for sharing your valuable insights. Aylar, as you mentioned, LGBTIQ people have intersecting identities, and because of each of those identities, they experience extra layers of violence, discrimination, torture. And you brought a very, very good example, and it reminded me of the story of Sahir. Also, Sahir was a lesbian woman that she was when she was 11 and 12, she was forced to marry an old man. And I remember she told me that when she grew up and when she was around 15 or 16 year old, she noticed that she is a lesbian and she doesn't have a feeling to men. And she told me that she was raped multiple times by her husband. She experienced domestic violence, and these this one story and the story that I heard are these are the stories that we heard. And unfortunately, there are many narratives, stories like this that happens in Afghanistan every single day, and we are not aware of all of them. Of course, continue.
Can I add something here about like the
Yes, of course.
and rescuing LGBTQ women and what is like the situation right now? So unfortunately, like the number of the LGBTQ women who can leave Afghanistan is much lower compared to others. Like after 2021, if we categorize, first cisgender and heterosexual men are at the top of the list who like leave Afghanistan successfully, and then cisgender heterosexual women. And finally, at the like end of the list, there are LGBTQ individual, but unfortunately, LGBTQ women, which means lesbian, bisexual, and trans community, like were not successful to leave Afghanistan. And because of that, like in the recent years before the Taliban, like these individuals means LGBTQ community, gay community, and trans woman community, like make an underground community, and this community help them to, find a way to exist and receiving humanitarian aid. But for lesbian, bisexual, and trans men, because the society like identify them as a woman, and they are experiencing experiencing gender-based violence and discrimination in Afghanistan, they could not make this underground society. And because of the poverty, like systematic poverty, and because they have limited access to, like, because of poverty, they had limited access to internet, you know, and other things, they could not find a way to leave Afghanistan. So right now we are facing, you know, to find these people and rescue them. But it is like we are in the one side and they are in the other side, you know. They cannot get humanitarian aid, you know, and they do not have like enough education to like access the internet and everything. So this is like big concern for us right now to rescue these people too.
Thank you so much, Aylar, for mentioning this. Unfortunately, even within the LGBTIQ community, lesbian or bisexual women or LGBTQ women are more marginalized compared to, for example, gay men. I remember when the Afghanistan fell down and when we started the evacuation program of LGBTIQ people, mostly gay men were on the list, and mostly gay men have been evacuated. And on the other hand, LGBTQ women, unfortunately, most of them are left behind inside the country. And it's because of all the reasons that you mentioned. For example, they cannot leave the house without a male mahram. They cannot go outside of their house without the permission of their family members. They don't have access to the internet. And because of all of these things that you said, it was very difficult for LGBTQ women to go outside of Afghanistan. And this has another layer of discrimination on the top of other existing violence and discrimination that they face every day.
Exactly. And can I add something else? Sorry, Artemis.
Yes, very shortly, because I'm mindful of time, but yes, of course.
Okay, but even when they find a canal to get out of Afghanistan, but after that they are facing like other challenges to leave Afghanistan, you know, like obstacles. Like right now, when we want to like rescue lesbian women from Afghanistan to the safe zone, for example, to Iran or Pakistan, you know, we have here like mahram problem, you know, they cannot leave Afghanistan without mahram. So there are lots of challenges for these people and also the organizations, you know, because we are on the front line and we are seeing like these challenges, we are dealing with these challenges, and like we are facing most like very difficulty to save them from Afghanistan to other places. I hope like someday we could do our job best, like, you know, like rescue all of these vulnerable people.
Thank you so much, Aylar. I hope so, and I appreciate your amazing work in rescuing LGBTQ women from Afghanistan. So thank you so much, everyone. So now I will start the second round of the question, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. But for this round of question, my first question is for Walid. Walid, as you know, many LGBTIQ individuals escape from Afghanistan and they flee to neighboring countries such as Pakistan or Iran. But still in those countries, they face significant challenges. Can you tell us more and can you shed some lights on the specific challenges faced by LGBTQ asylum seekers in countries like Iran or Pakistan?
Thank you, Artemis, for the question. A lot of people do, especially in the past 3 years, have chosen to go to Iran and Pakistan. I worked a lot with individuals who ended up in Pakistan. So when they cross the border through different ways or fly, for momentarily they feel a sense of relief that they have escaped the cage and like, okay, they are free. But then the reality hits them and they often find out themselves in situations being either homeless on the street or end up being exploited through different institutions or individuals because they don't know where to go and what help to seek. Or before leaving Afghanistan, they might have their own plan, which often does not work sometimes, and things take a lot of time. As you know, UNHCR has a really long process of dealing with asylum seekers. Personally, I've worked with them for 3 years when I was living in Pakistan, and I do not doubt that they are incapable of providing help, but they do strongly lack the motivation to cater to younger refugees. They're often aged between 18 to 35, men and women, but when they see them as young individuals who are healthy, young, and they're capable of making sure they're safe, they turn a blind eye on them and do not actively try to look and help them. In terms of Pakistan, this is an interesting number, as I always go back and compare it to El Salvador has the highest murder rate per 100,000 people in America, but Pakistan has highest, which is 700 per 100,000, significantly higher. And that 700 people, oftentimes, and a lot of local organizations in Pakistan, Karachi and Lahore specific, have pointed out that those young trans women are often from Afghanistan or Peshawar KP, which they do not have Afghan citizen card or any other form of identity with them. And those murder cases go unreported because there is no one to look after them or come back and search for them. So a lot of transgender people who end up in Pakistan due to their appearance or due to their professional work or whatever they end up dying in parties, roads, or sometimes even by policemen. And there is no organization who would go and ask for them because their family is not there to look for them. Really recently, we was in conversation with a few refugees who arrived in England, and they were sharing their experiences and how difficult for them it was from Kabul to London. It was a really long journey, and it took them almost a year to get here. But what the key point was that we realized that MSM or main sex with men is an open secret to our society in Afghanistan that has been happening all the time and still is. What the problem is that when they see a man or a boy expressing any feminine behavior or any sort of femininity, it just disturbs their delusion and see that, okay, something else can also experience, people can behave or carry themselves differently. That's when that difference does not goes well with their reality, and what they choose often is violence in order to suppress that human being, which we seen as a lot of cases in border on bus stops, on checkpoints, where young people are being beaten or done hideous crimes against. But at the end of the day, I think this is not going to stop, and there's a lot of great ways to help Black Afghan community inside Pakistan and Afghanistan. And young people are quite resilient in this way. And there's another report that we are working in heinous crimes of the Taliban themselves and how they are in their personal engagement with other people. And a lot of videos have surfaced from prominent Taliban leaders and employees in with big authorities and working in offices. So that's going to come out soon, and it's going to be interesting to look into that and see how pious or Amr bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar their people are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Walid, for all the information that you shared with us. As you said, many LGBTIQ people, they escape from Afghanistan to find safety and security in other countries like Iran or Pakistan, but still they face challenges in those countries. I remember a few months ago, a trans woman from Afghanistan was killed in Pakistan. I think it was in Islamabad, that she was killed by a gunshot, and Pakistani police announced it officially, but they couldn't arrest the perpetrator, unfortunately. Also, the situation in Iran is very complicated and difficult. For example, I know many, because of the same language that we have. For example, many LGBTIQ people, they go to Iran to ask for asylum or to find safety and security in that country, but still they face the persecution and violence in that country. For example, in Iran also, we have the same-sex relationship is criminalized by death penalty punishment. And there is no difference between in Iran or Afghanistan in terms of legal protection. There is no legal, they don't have a legal rights, or there is no legal protection for LGBTIQ people in all of those countries. So thank you so much, Walid. And my next question is for Mohra. Mohra Jan, you're in Europe for a couple of years, and do you believe that LGBTIQ refugees who come to Europe are safe? And what are the challenges they face after arriving in Europe?
Well, I have been traveling to Germany. I have traveled to Paris just 1 month ago, like this month, last month. It was not safe at all. Like immigrants was especially, they was so behaving bad. Like we're in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iran or Turkey. They was behaving so rude. Even they was trying to touch the LGBT people. It was we were in Pride, and we had Afghanistan flag, and then few people came, like 3 men came, and then they asked us to put down the Afghanistan flag, and they was kind of attacking us. But I took a stand for Afghanistan flag, for our identity, because Afghanistan is not like just for women's, men's, and straight people. It's our hometown, and I believe that one day Afghanistan will be free, and we will live in freedom in Afghanistan. But we have to work a lot for it. We have to fight a lot for it, and it's not that simple. And yeah, in Europe, it's not safe. I heard from a few LGBT people that they got like someone raped them in Germany, I guess. And still, one of my friends is in Frankfurt. She's a celebrity. She's a famous person, but when she's going outside, everyone is treating her to stand with her, to talk with her. They just want to first treat her, and then they're coming and talk to her. How are you? I said, let's go tonight with us. Why you're not going with us? Let's party. Let's dance for us. Like, they are in Europe. They are living in Europe, and they're thinking that we are just here to dance for them, just here to be born to entertain the straight community. And we went to a restaurant, and the restaurant we ordered qabli palau, and they just, on the table, it was a rice just with little bit carrots on it. But it was not proper qabli palau. And then I asked them, why you just bring it like this? And he was like, we don't have all things, so we just have this carrot for now. And exactly 2 minutes later, they just put the another table, a proper qabli palau. And and I feel like we're not human. They're treating us like we are a trash. We're something just to get used by them, they can rape us, they can use us, they can see us dancing, they just want us to entertain them. But it's horrible, actually, for me, in Europe especially. And I got treated by some people while I was in hunger strike. First, a man came and treated me, and said, everything is normal in Afghanistan, and there's no LGBT people in Afghanistan. And I said, I'm from Afghanistan. I can speak Dari, Pashto, wherever you want. And then he was like, no, you're from Pakistan or Iran. You're not from Afghanistan. And then that man at the night came with 2 people and attacked on my tent, and they wanted to burn my tent. Still, Europe is also not safe for our community. And all dangers, I guess, is from immigrants, which is horrible right now. and they're treating us so bad. Sometimes I feel like I want to cry, but I want to just be strong. And sometimes you cannot be strong, actually, when you are just living in a country where they talk about freedom, feminism, but in that country, people are treating you like a waste. So actually, it hurts sometimes. But we should work on it. I guess it hurts, but we should work on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohajan, for sharing your experiences. And I'm so sorry to hear that, unfortunately, LGBTIQ people who arrive in Europe, they still face those challenges in European countries. I remember when the first group of LGBTIQ people who have been evacuated from Afghanistan and arrived in Germany, they told me that they were harassed or they were beaten in the refugee camps by other Afghan refugees. So still we have these challenges. Or I remember actually in Frankfurt, I remember 5 months ago, I was there for a concert, and in that with a group of Afghan LGBTQ people. And I remember when we were on the streets, a group of Afghans attacked us by insulting us, attack us, and we had a very bad experience at that time. And I remember there was I think it was 2 months ago that in one of the city of Germany, I think it was Bremen, a trans woman had been beaten by a group of Afghans. So still, and those people are so traumatized because I talked with one of them, and he told me that he escaped from Afghanistan. He came to Europe to find safety and security here, but he was beaten by Afghans again here in Europe. Yes, we have the legal protection, but unfortunately, it cannot help you all the time. So yes, and as you said, we should work on these issues and we should advocate for that. Yes, Mohajan, continue.
I just want to say something more. It's not. I think it's not just the Afghan community. It's also the Arab community. I was studying ICT, which is a Swedish language. There was Arab women, and when they was seeing me, they was saying Astaghfirullah. And one day I remember one of them said to each other, Alamat Qiyamat, something like this. And it turns out like, yes, it's not just from Afghan community, it's from Arab community.
Yes, we have yes, we have transphobic and homophobic people in all communities, not in a specific nationalities. We have even in Afghans, even Europeans can be homophobic and transphobic. Yes, unfortunately. And Mohajan, I'm sorry for interrupting you. We have half an hour, and I'm mindful of time.
I just want to say one thing. So I'm sorry. Yes. It's not homophobia. Like when you have phobia from something, you get it away from that person, from that thing, but you're not going to attack them. They are just hating us. It's not homophobia. They are hating humanity. So yeah, that's not homophobia. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the clarification, Mohajan. So now we move to Samir. Again, I will ask the question in English, and then I will translate it for Samir, and Samir will answer it in Farsi, and then I will do my best to translate his answer into English. So Samir, you have experienced extreme violence under the Taliban rule, as you mentioned a few minutes ago. But what is your request from the international community, and how the international community can hold the Taliban accountable, and how do they can help LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan? سامیار جان، من سوالی از تو پرسان کردم به انگلیسی و میخوایم برای تو ترجمهش کنم. سامیار جان، همینجور که خودت پیشتر اشاره کردی، تو خشونت رو از سمت طالبان تجربه کردی و همینجور هم کسایی رو داشتی که خشونت رو تجربه کرده بودن. من میخواستم بدانم که به نظر تو چه درخواستی از جامعه جهانی داری و جامعه جهانی چطور میتونه طالبان را مسئول نگه داره و همینطور چطور جامعه جهانی میتونه به LGBT ها کمک کنه. سامیار جان.
خب سلام دوباره و من میخوام پاسخ سوال شما رو بدم. در دوران حکومت طالبان خشونت چیزی فراتر از یک واقعیت روزمره بود. خشونت بخشی از زندگی ما شده بود. طالبان نه تنها ما رو به دلیل هویت جنسی یا جنسیتیمون هدف قرار میدادند، بلکه هر نشانه‌ای از اختلاف نظر یا رفتار غیر اسلامی را از دیدگاه آنها میتوانست به سرکوب بیرحمانه منجر شود. من شخصا بارها با تهدیدات و خشونت‌های کلامی و فیزیکی مواجه شدم که یکی از ترسناکترینشون روزی بود که من به سفارت سوئد در کابل رفتم که طالبان هجوم آوردن طرف من و من بازخواست کردن که تو آیا دختر هستی یا پسر هستی، تو باید بررسی بدنی بشی، که من شخصا اجازه ندادم که مردها منو بررسی بکنن و آنها من معرفی کردم یک طالب زن، کاملا منو برد داخل اتاق، کاملا منو لخت کرد و اعضای بدن من دست زد که مثل یک تجاوز به بدن من بود و من خیلی لحظات خیلی سختی رو پشت سر گذاشتم اون روز. و اما الان که بازگو میکنم اون روز سخت گذشت و دوستانی دارم که حتی بدتر از من رو تجربه کردن. برخی از آنها توسط طالبان دستگیر شدن، شکنجه شدن و در نهایت بسیار از آنها دیگر باز نگذاشتن. این تجربیات درناک و عمیقاً تاثیرگذار بودند و ما هنوز با زخم‌های روانی و عاطفی آنها دست پنجه نرم می‌کنیم. درخواست من از جامعه جهانی ساده ولی حیاتی است. بی‌تفاوت نباشید. طالبان نمی‌توانند بدون پاسخگویی به جنایات خود به حکومت ادامه دهند. جامعه جهانی نباید چشم خود را بر روی نقض‌های فاحش حقوق بشر در افغانستان ببندند. افراد بیگناه به ویژه اعضای جامعه LGBTQ هر روز قربانی این خشونت‌ها می‌شود. باید طالبان را تحت فشار قرار بگیرند تا به حقوق همه افراد فارغ از جنسیت، هویت جنسی یا گرایش جنسی احترام بگذارند. اولین گام مهم این است که دولت‌های جهان طالبان را به رسمیت نشناسند تا مشروعیت بین‌المللی برای آنها فراهم نشود. به رسمیت شناختن طالبان به عنوان یک دولت قانونی به معنای تایید ضمنی جنایات آنها خواهد بود. تحریم‌های هدفمند باید علیه رهبران طالبان و کسانی که در نقض حقوق بشر دست دارند اعمال شود. این تحریم‌ها می‌تواند شامل ممنوعیت‌های سفر، مسدود کردن دارایی‌ها و محدودیت‌های اقتصادی باشد. همچنین سازمان‌های بین‌المللی در نهایت‌ها حقوق بشر باید دسترسی مستقیم به افغانستان داشته باشند تا بتوانند وضعیت‌های حقوق بشر در این کشور را نظارت کنند و مستند کنند. این اطلاعات می‌تواند به ایجاد افشار بیشتر بر طالبان و اطلاع رسانی به مردم جهان کمک کند. نیاز است که به جنایات طالبان به صورت مستند جمع‌آوری و دادگاه بین‌المللی مطرح شوند. رهبران آن ببخشید من محل کارم هستم، از من جای راحت‌تر برم، ببخشید.
نه خواهش میکنم.
تا رهبران آنها پاسخگوی اعمال خود شوند. یکی دیگر از درخواست‌های مهم ما این است که پناهندگان LGBTQ افغان باید در اولویت قرار گیرند. کشورهای مختلف باید سیاست‌های پناهندگی خود را گسترش دهند، به این افراد کمک کنند تا از شرایط وحشتناک فرار کنند. بسیار از ما هنوز در شرایط بسیار خطرناک زندگی می‌کنیم. به کمک فوری نیاز داریم. در نهایت حمایت مالی و روانی از بازماندگان خشونت‌های طالبان بسیار ضروری است. بسیار از ما هنوز با عواقب روحی و روانی آن دوران دست پنجه نرم می‌کنیم. جامعه جهانی باید منابعی فراهم کند تا ما بتوانیم این زخم‌ها را درمان کنیم و به بازسازی زندگی خود بپردازیم. بی‌تفاوتی به معنای حمایت از ظلم است. جهان باید بایستد و طالبان را به خاطر جنایاتشان پاسخگو باشد. مرسی.
خیلی ممنون سامیار عزیز برای صحبت هایی که کردی، بسیار ارزشمند بود و من الان حرفای خودت را به انگلیسی تا جایی که بتونم و نوت برداشتم سعی میکنم ترجمه کنم و پیشا پیش عذرخواهی میکنم اگر جایی را جا انداختم، ولی سعی خود را میکنم. So thank you so much, Samir, for your answer. So now I want to translate what he said. Samir mentioned at the beginning briefly again mentioned the situation of LGBTIQ people under the Taliban's rule, and Samir shared one of his story at the beginning of the fall of Afghanistan. He said that at the beginning of the fall of Afghanistan, he went to the Sweden embassy. And when he was on his way, he was stopped by a group of Taliban, and they took him and they wanted to search his body because of his gender expression as a trans person. And Samir said that they took me into a room and they forced me to be naked. They forced me to be naked, and after that they touched all of my body, and to me it was a kind of a sexual harassment, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. Also, Samir said that I was so lucky that I had other friends that they were harassed by the Taliban or they were arrested by the Taliban, and I haven't heard anything from them yet. And also, Samir answered my question, and he said that the international community must not recognize Taliban as a government. He said that recognizing the Taliban as a legitimate government would only condone their regime. And also he suggested that instead of recognizing the Taliban, we should hold them accountable. He said that the international community must impose sanctions like travel ban or asset freeze to the Taliban. And the Taliban leaderships must be targeted and they should be held responsible for all of those abuses. And also Samir said that the international human rights organizations and international community must monitor the current human rights violations. And also he asked the international organizations to document all of these human rights violations of LGBTIQ people. And also, Samir said that the international community must not close their eyes on the situation of LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan. And he asked the international community to prioritize LGBTIQ people in their asylum case. And at the end, Samir said that the psychological and financial support for survivors of the Taliban violence is essential, and the international community must provide the necessary resources to help rebuild their lives and heal their wounds left by all of these trauma. And at the end, Samir said that the international community cannot remain indifferent to the Taliban's crime, and he demanded justice. Thank you so much, Samir, for your very good answer, and thank you so much for sharing your recommendations. I think it's very important, as you said, to document all of these human rights violations for accountability mechanisms, for memorialization purposes, and also as you said at the end, that psychological support and financial support is very crucial. There are some organizations that they provide financial support, like our organization, but till now we don't have any organization to provide mental health services to LGBTIQ Afghans, or to mental health services to LGBTIQ Afghans who are outside of Afghanistan, which is really essential because many people ask this from our organization and they demand this. And we, unfortunately, because of the many reasons, one of them is lack of enough resources, we couldn't address it, but we will try to work on this. Once again, thank you, Samir. And my next question is for Aylar. Aylar, what international organizations and international community can do in order to help LGBTIQ Afghans to be safe in Afghanistan?
Artemis, I think Samir has pointed like very important recommendations. That was my point too. But I will say again, the international community must take Taliban accountable for their crime in Afghanistan, especially for LGBTQI individual, and also take like a safe place, make a safe place, and extend humanitarian visas and aid for LGBTQI people in Afghanistan. For example, the last year we had an earthquake in Herat, and when the international organization went there to help and to help people for for humanitarian aid, like this aid was divided based on gender, like just for two gender, men and women in Afghanistan. And trans people has faced like discrimination during that their process, and even they have like mocked these people, because of like their appearances, like femininity that they have, and for this should not be from the international organization. Like they should help equally to all people in Afghanistan. And also, like the last thing is that support the work of Afghanistani LGBTIQ Organization in Afghanistan, who are documenting human rights violation of LGBT people in Afghanistan. That is very important. Also, I have like other recommendation for Afghanistani civil society, because like these two is like, you know, connected together. Unfortunately, Afghanistan civil society and like organization who are like advocate for Afghanistan has like lack of information and knowledge about the situation of LGBTQI community in Afghanistan. They should knowledge them, you know, and bring intersectionality to the conversation about LGBT community. Unfortunately, during my work, and you know, I have seen some like many civil society members has used like inappropriate language, you know, and even homophobic and transphobic language, you know, in their advocacy. So it is very important to make more space for LGBTQ individual, and include them in this kind of like in the advocacy, you know, and even like like giving such events, you know, it is help like this community and like civil society community to get together and, you know, make a strong community and advocate about Afghanistan situation. Thank you, Artemis.
Thank you so much, Aylar, for your very, very valuable recommendations. Yes, as you said, it's very important that we give a safe space to LGBTIQ people so they can come raise their voices, share their insights with the people. I heard this many times, that many straight people or even straight civil society said that it's the problem from the LGBTIQ people because they have been silent in the past 2 decades. But always I said this, that it's not the problem of the LGBTIQ people, because the organizations or other civil societies or the international community never created a safe space for them, so they can come and they talk. And so, as you said, it's very important first to create these safe spaces, and then we bring them, and we ask them to come and talk and share their insights. Also, as the another very important point that you mentioned, and I want to echo it again, it's very important to learn about the LGBTIQ community without learning about the community, without knowing the appropriate terminology for LGBTIQ people. We cannot advocate for them. And as you said, we saw many times that they saw inappropriate terminology for the community. So thank you so much, Aylar. And now I will ask my last question from Frishtajan. Frishtajan, many LGBTIQ people told our organization that apart from protection, they also want justice, and they want accountability and justice from the international community. And as you know, there are currently several campaigns in order to hold the Taliban accountable through various ways, through the ICC, ICJ, or the UN mechanisms. My question to you is that what are the potential avenues for accountability and justice for LGBTQ victims and survivors? Over to you, Frishtajan.
Thanks so much, Artemis. I wanted to thank Mohra and Soumya for sharing their experience, and I'm extremely sorry for what you're going through. I do admire the resilience and the strength of how you're still standing for this very, very valuable cause. And I believe that I might be actually the least expert on this topic, but I will share what I think from my point of view as a person who's working with some of these mechanisms would actually help. So, beginning with the International Criminal Court, ICC has an ongoing investigation in Afghanistan, and in the Rome Statute, the abuses that happens based on sexual orientation is considered to be crimes against humanity. I do believe there is potential for the LGBTQI plus community to contribute to the ongoing investigation, and for the ICC to hold the Taliban accountable for the abuses that they are committing right now in the country. There is also the special mandate holder, the special rapporteur for the LGBT community. And I think these are the potential avenues that could report and document what is happening in Afghanistan. I believe that the first step to accountability is always documentation and truth-telling, and it's very important to make sure that these abuses are being documented in a timely manner, and they are being presented to the procedures that can lead to accountability. I mean, the Universal Periodic Review that happened for Afghanistan a few months ago is another avenue. So I believe that these reports need to be inclusive of the situation for the members of the LGBTQI+ community as well. There's arguments about a potential ICJ case before the International Court of Justice for a state to take Afghanistan to the ICJ. And I think that what is happening in Afghanistan could against the LGBTQI+ community could also be part of this case, because I mean several conventions which Afghanistan is a party to, including the Convention Against Torture, is being violated. One of the things that I believe that is quite important, because I've heard from what Samyar said and then what Mohra said and what Aylar said about the procedures, I believe at some point we need to push the UNHCR to recognize being a member of the LGBTQ community in Afghanistan by itself should be a route for asylum seeking in the countries that have a records in human rights or LGBTQI friendly. And this is something that needs to be, I think, a standard, because we do have reports about what is happening in Afghanistan, but as you said, it's not as if very few people actually have been evacuated and have found relatively safe countries that they're living in. So I think that that's very important. There needs to be routes and there needs to be a policy on that, because I think UK is the only country right now that recognizes this, but we need to push UNHCR to recognize this as a policy, and also we need to advocate with the capitals to make sure that within their country situation report or whatever they have for asylum seeking, they need to make sure that being a member from the LGBTQI+ community is an added vulnerability, and it stands alone by itself. It needs to be a route for them to be able to apply for asylum.
Thank you so much, First John. Yes, as you said, all of these systematic violences falls under the crime against humanity of gender persecution under the Rome Statute. So it can, and ICC has open case, as you said, and I hope that after the investigation, we can, for the first time, we can have a case that the abuses against LGBTIQ people have been investigated by the ICC, because till now the ICC hasn't investigated any crimes committed against LGBTIQ people. But I hope Afghanistan will be the first case at the International Criminal Court. And yes, as you said, UK is the only country, and also there are some other countries. Recently, the Czech Republic recently adopted this in its policies, and also Canada as well. But I'm not aware of other countries. But thank you so much for all the points that you mentioned, First John. And I'm mindful of time. I think we have only 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Florence, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But now I open the floor for the audience. So you can ask your questions, or if you have any comments, you can write it in the chat box, or you can raise your hands and you can open your mic and ask your questions or provide your comments. I think Diana, if I'm not mistaken, your name, I remember you wrote in the chat for me that you want to speak. You can open your mic and talk. Over to you, Diana.
اوکی. سلام به شما و تمام عزیزانی که فعلا حضور دارن در جلسه، و تشکر از فرصت که در اختیار من قرار دادین. متاسفانه باید اضافه بکنم که وضعیت دگرباشان در افغانستان داره هر روز بدتر میشه و متاسفانه با گذشت هر روز ما شاهد مجازات بدنی گروه تروریستی طالبان بالای دگرباشان جنسی هستیم و متاسفانه هر روزی وضعیت داره در حال افزایش است و دگرباشان زیاد توسط گروه تروریستی طالب مجازات میشن و در زندانهای طالب بالای اینا تجاوز میشه. و در کل اگر ما فعلا در نظر بگیریم، دگرباشان در افغانستان فعلا در یک وضعیت غیر انسانی هستند و هر روز گروه تروریستی بیشتر گروه آسیب پذیر LGBT را مورد هدف قرار میده. من چند روز پیش پیام از یکی از دوستای LGBT را دریافت کردم که واقعا اصلا باور من نمیشد. یعنی در کل من تعجب کردم، یعنی حکایت که به من از وضعیت خودش میکرد واقعا بسیار زیاد وحشتناک بود. به من پیام فرستاد و از من اول مشوره خواست. من ازش پرسیدم که خب من بفرمایین، من هر مشکل که داشته باشین بر من بگوین، من میشنوم. ولی واقعا قصه ای که به من کرد یک قصه بسیار زیاد یعنی یک قصه بسیار زیاد وحشتناک بود و من اصلا نشنیده بودم که قسم یک قصه را به من قصه کردن که من یعنی همجنسگرا هستم و خواهر متوجه از این موضوع شده و بعد از اینکه خواهرش متوجه میشه که این فرد همجنسگراست، متاسفانه ازش تقاضای جنسی میکنه خواهرش و برش میگه که یا باید امروز من بخوابی، امروز من رابطه جنسی داشته باشی، یا ای که من با پدرم با مادرم صحبت میکنم. من تکان خوردم، واقعا من تکان خوردم به جایم و گفتم که این واقعا چی وضعیت است. ما شکنجه شدیم ولی این شکل شکنجه درست است که حالا ما از هر جای شکنجه میشیم و شکنجه از خانه خود ما شروع میشه، از طرف پدر، مادر، خواهر، برادر و همینطور اقارب دیگه. ولی این قسم واقعا بسیار زیاد وحشتناک بود و من بعد از اینکه این قصه را به من حکایت کردن، من خیلی کوشش کردم که امرایشان تماس بگیرم، ولی چند روز میشه که اصلا امرایشان تماس نگرفتیم و موفق نشدیم با اینکه امرایشان تماس بگیرم و خبر از سرنوشتش ندارم. و همین قسم صدها دوست دیگه ما که فعلا در داخل افغانستان هستن و مرگ روحی و جسمی را دارن حس میکنن و من خوشبخت هستم به این که تازه فعالیت‌های ما آغاز کردیم و به عنوان فعال حقوق دگرباشان جنسی و دارم کار میکنم تا ای که بتانیم یک دنیای بهتر بسازیم بر زندگی و خصوصا آن از عزیزان ما که در داخل از افغانستان هستن. LGBT های عزیز خیلی خوشحال شدن به این که من جرأت به خرج دادم و آمدم صحبت کردم، ولی من اوج اعتراضات خیلی شدید هم به همراه داشت این کار من، ولی من در این مسیر خوشبختانه فعلا قرار گرفتیم و ادامه میتونم و بر من مهم نیست که قیمتش چی است و ایده رو مرا حمایت میکنه یا نمیکنه، ولی قاطعانه استاد است و من استادگی میکنم، مبارزه میکنم. و از اینجا باید اعلان بکنم که من از تمام عزیزان خواهش میکنم که با وضعیت اسفناک دگرباشان جنسی در افغانستان توجه بکنن و اینا را از او وضعیت بعد که فعلا دارن نجات بدن و جا داره که از مهرجان در ابتدای جلسه یادآوری کردن از اعتراضات و برنامه‌ای که داشتن. ما اینجا میخوایم بعض از صحبت‌های در این مورد داشته باشم کوتاه که وقتی که موضوع
فقط دایانا جان اگر میشه خیلی کوتاه چون ما وقتی کافی نداریم ممنون میشم که بتونم بعدی هم صحبت کنم. تشکر.
که موضوع حقوق زن به میان میآید ما میبینیم که تعداد زیاد از رسانه ها حتی کوچکترین خبر هم خیلی کلان بزرگ جلوه میدن، ولی وقتی که موضوع دگرباش میآید، موضوع یک LGBTQ میآید، ما میبینیم که کوچکترین خبر یا راپور در موردش تهیه نمیشه. متاسفانه ما امیدوار هستیم در قدم اول رسانه ها به نظر من گام بسیار مهم را میتونن بردارن. تشکر.
تشکر دایانا جان. من سعی میکنم صحبت‌های خود رو تا جایی که یاد اومد و تانستم نوت بگیرم ترجمه بکنم به انگلیسی. So thank you so much, Diana, for sharing your experiences with us. I try to translate what Diana said. Diana said that the situation of LGBTIQ people is getting worse every day in Afghanistan. We see sexual violence against LGBTIQ community. I heard many times that many LGBTIQ people who have been detained by the Taliban, they have been raped or they were sexually assaulted in prisons by the Taliban. And LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan live in an inhuman situation. Diana said that the Taliban targets LGBTIQ people systematically. A few days also, Diana mentioned that a few weeks ago, I received a message from an LGBTQ person He was a gay person, and he shared his story and narrative with me, and it was very horrible. It was heartbreaking and unbelievable, but apparently it was true. And that gay person told me that his sister noticed about his sexual orientation, and then his sister started sexually harassing him and abusing him and threatening him. Also, he said that the violence that we experienced, unfortunately, starts from our own family first, and then from friends and the society. And Diana said that in the past few days, I tried many times to call that gay person, but unfortunately, he hasn't answered me yet. And also, Diana mentioned I'm trying to advocate for the rights of LGBTIQ people to make a better world for LGBTIQ Afghans. But on the other hand, I saw some backlashes because of my activities. And Diana said that I asked you to pay attention to the situation of LGBTIQ people and raise their voices. And at the end, Diana said that when there is a news about a woman in Afghanistan, all media outlets try to cover that news, but when it comes to LGBTIQ people, they are mostly silent and they don't cover the news around LGBTIQ people. Thank you so much, Diana, for sharing your experience and feedback with us. So, any other people? Do you have any question, comments, or anything that you want to share with us? So we have a question in the chat box. Yes. What do you think about the prevalent conservatism among the Afghan civil society and how it impacts your community? So I will try to translate this question for Samyar to Farsi, and then سامیار جان، یک سوالی توی چت پرسان شده و اگر خواستی میتونی جواب بدی. سوال شده که به نظر شما در مورد محافظه کاری رایج در میان جامعه مدنی افغانستان چه تأثیری میتونه بر جامعه LGBT بذاره؟
سلام، اگه میشه لطفاً هم کلمه رو خیلی ساده به من بگو که من درست متوجه بشم که بتونم جواب این سوالا رو بدم.
حتما. مثلا سامیار جان، ما میبینیم که جامعه مدنی افغانستان، فعالین حقوق بشر توی افغانستان، یا مثلا میبینیم مدافعان حقوق بشر که افغانستانی هستن محافظه کار هستن وقتی در مورد جامعه LGBT صحبت میشه. مثلا در مورد حقوق بشر صحبت میکنه، در مورد حقوق زنان صحبت میکنه، ولی در مورد جامعه LGBT که میرسه یک محافظه کاریه، یا صحبت نمیکنه یا گپ نمیزنه در مورد این مسئله جامعه LGBT. و این چی تأثیری میتونه به نظر از تو داشته باشه؟
متوجه شدم. ببینید که در افغانستان از همون اول که هر کسی که مثلا کلمه LGBT رو بشنوه همه بدشون میاد و به تنها چیزی که فکر میکنن حتی کلمه شنیدن LGBT براشون گناه محسوب میشه و احساس میکنن دارن گناه میکنن و هیچ وقت در مورد LGBT هیچ وقت صحبت نشده و نخواهد شد. اگه دقت کرده باشین حتی تو رسانه هم هیچ وقت در موردشون صحبت نکردن، چون احساس میکنن که فکر میکنن که خیلی زشته برای کشور افغانستان و همیشه گفتن که کشور افغانستان هیچ فرد LGBT نداره، اصلا وجود نداره. ولی به نظر من کسانی که هستن تو سیاست کار میکنن یا ژورنالیست هستن یا خبرنگار هستن و این چیز رو سانسور میکنن، به نظر من اصلا نباید ادامه بدن کارشون، چه سیاست باشه، چه خبرنگار باشه، چه هر چیزی، چون LGBT ها یک جامعه‌ای هست که حتما با درونشون صحبت بشه. امیدوارم به درستی من صحبت کرده باشم. اگه درست پاسخ نگرفتی من میتونم دوباره ادامه بدم.
حتما. تشکر سامیار جان برای پاسخ دادیم. من حواسم نبود، نوت بر نداشتم، ولی تا جایی که یادم مانده سعی میکنم که ترجمه کنم. Samyar mentioned that those people these conservatives among the journalists, politicians, and another group of people will lead to the exclusion of LGBTIQ people, and those people who work in these areas must leave their jobs because they cannot do it properly. I don't remember all the answers, but sorry for that. I couldn't take a note, but any one of you that want to respond to it, or we can take another questions. Aylar, Frishta, Mohran. So I don't see anyone. Okay, so thank you for this question. Also, I want to reply to this question. As I think one of the panelists mentioned earlier, I think it was Mohra and Aylar that said that sometimes human rights defenders and women's rights activists, they try to ignore LGBTIQ people, and they don't want to talk about the LGBTIQ community sometimes because they're ashamed of talking about this issue, or they don't have enough information to talk about these issues. But in general, this exclusion of LGBTIQ people will lead to further marginalization of LGBTIQ people. For example, next week, I think Fershtajan is aware of the next session of Human Rights Council that the UN Special Rapporteur will present his new report on the situation of Afghanistan, and also the UN High Commissioner is going to publish his new report about Afghanistan. Both of them will have a report. But I read the report by the High Commissioner yesterday, and I noticed in his report he didn't mention of anything about the human rights situation of LGBTIQ people. So this exclusion is not only at the civil society level, but also at the UN level. We can see that they exclude LGBTIQ people from their narratives, from their reports. Or UNAMA in the past 2 decades, they have done nothing for LGBTIQ people. Even they haven't published any report. Or UN Women recently published I forget the title, but it was a country report, I think, about the situation of women in Afghanistan. And in that report, they didn't talk about the situation of LGBTQ women, like trans women in Afghanistan. So we can see that at the UN level, there is a conservatism exclusion of LGBTIQ people. Also, at the lower level, at the civil society, we can see, I think Mohrajan answered it very clearly, that they ignore LGBTIQ people. They don't talk about LGBTIQ people. And all of these issues at the end will lead to further marginalization of LGBTIQ people. Nice to see you, Samira Jan. Do you want to ask any question, because your camera is open?
Thanks to everyone for this important panel, and I know very well the situation, but thanks to the going deeper the arguments. So I would like to introduce myself with my face, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Samira, for your feedback. And I know Samira since past 2 years. Samira is from Italy, and she supports LGBTIQ Afghans, and she has a very vocal voice in order to support LGBTIQ people. Nice to see you, Samira Jan, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tashakkur.
So I think if there is no question, we can close the webinar. So is there any questions? So apparently we don't have any questions. So thank you so much today. So as we come to the end of our discussion, I would like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their valuable insights today. And this has been an enriching conversation, and I hope everyone in the audience has gained new perspective on the plight of LGBTIQ people in Afghanistan. And on behalf of Persish Policy Institute and the Afghan LGBTQ Organization, ALO, and also on behalf of our distinguished panelists, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Stay safe and have a great day. Thank you so much.